Okay, today is September 11th, 2017, and right now at 9:30 p.m. we have a temperature of 73 degrees in the foothills. The relative humidity is 61%. Dew point is 60 degrees. Been very muggy today. We had rain this morning briefly for about 5 minutes, big drops, not even that long, maybe about 4 minutes. Then it stopped. And the barometer is up at 30.03. Should have had rain today. We'll show the west coast here in a few minutes, but 9/11, it's the 16th year now that our liberties were hijacked by a rogue government. Rogue elements in our government staged that attack in order to jumpstart a war in the Middle East. And it's mostly about control of the opium, the world's supply of opium, which morphine is made from. And one of the things that's interesting about 9/11 is Flight 93. We were told that Flight 93 there was a wrestling match in the cockpit, and the pilots bravely fought off the hijackers, and during that wrestling match, the plane spiraled into the ground. Well, I was watching all the news that day and recording some of it, most of it, but I did happen to miss the most important piece of evidence, and that is the NBC network video, which they still have, by the way, in their archives. It shows a trail of luggage from Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, an 8-mile trail of luggage. Now, how could that happen while the plane was supposedly falling out of the sky in perfectly good flying condition, while 2 or 3 people wrestled for the controls? Well, actually, that's not the truth of the matter. We were not told the truth like everything else about 9/11. Fact is that plane was shot down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It was shot down, and that plane was actually heading for Building 7 in New York City. And if you guys out there, ladies and gentlemen, know about Building 7, that plane, or rather that building, that's a 47-story steel-framed building, which fell right to the ground like a Las Vegas casino that was being imploded. In fact, all 3 towers were imploded with thermate and C4. And we've all seen the videos on that. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, be sure to visit the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth website. That's ae911truth.org. And they have all kinds of great video on that website. Also, you can watch videos on YouTube. There's a popular video called Zeitgeist. And skip over the first chapter. It may offend some of the religious people out there. But it's interesting. But I would just skip to the second chapter, watch the entire film, and then go back to the first chapter if you are so inclined to do that. But the thing about this is that we've not been told the truth about much of anything, and that goes for these daily instances of weather manipulation occurring daily in these satellite images. You see Jose right here, just in about a day and a half, went from almost a Category 5 down to a Category 1 storm. This storm is now moving to the northeast, by the way. We can see a huge blast pattern all the way around right there as that storm was taken out. Now, this storm here, Irma, could have easily been taken out just like what we're seeing with Jose. Jose's rebuilding, and we see that giant navy blue down here on the far right as it rebuilds. But they'll hit it again, and they're going to keep hitting this until it just fizzles out. You know, it becomes a tropical, post-tropical depression. Very important to note here that what we just saw in Florida was an orchestrated terrorist attack. It was a disaster in the making. And so for the 16th anniversary of 9/11, we have a mess all the way from Key West, all the way through the Caribbean and up the Florida coast. And we can see that there's a right angle here, very well-defined right angle. We'll see if I can find my envelope real quick. And we can just stop the tape, the loop. You can see how straight that angle is. That's a 90-degree right angle right there. And if we put the grid on, of course, people will make the argument, well, you're dealing with a sphere, and a sphere is not flat. Well, that's true. It's not a perfect right angle. I'll give you that. Certainly that's technically correct. But the fact is that this is not Mother Nature, and this is not CO2 causing that either. All the people out there, Al Gore and these actors and actresses from Hollywood, they don't know what they're talking about. This is a transmitter from space, either a laser-based transmitter or a phased array type microwave transmitter, which is heating this area. And that's why there's no water vapor in this area. This is the water vapor map. And so all we see on this map is water vapor, varying degrees of water vapor based on this scale down here. This being the deepest and thickest area of water vapor, like at the center of this hurricane, right down here. The center is navy blue. All right, so we can see that right angle. They are trying to separate the frontal system here, this area, wrapping around that low. The center of the low is right here. Still trying to rebuild, but they're not going to let that. They're putting heat right on top of this, and we can see there's very little rotation. In fact, most of the rotation is clockwise, which indicates descending air, high pressure. Okay, now we have a huge upper level low right out here, which is being isolated. Right here, we've got a transmitter maintaining a high pressure area right there. And look at Jose being blown apart, being completely blown apart. This is the kind of deception that's been going on for a long time. And 9/11 was not the beginning. That Shanksville plane was headed for World Trade Center Building 7. And that's what the media and the government doesn't want you to know. Because that would demonstrate that the entire 9/11 narrative was a fraud. It proves that those planes didn't bring down those buildings, and that's why Building 7 was never really covered on the news. You know, most of the people on the news that have any kind of clout are all CIA people. They're all contractors. Our media is loaded with these people, and they don't know truth if it hit them right in the head. 2x4 right upside the head. They wouldn't know the truth if it bit them on the tail end. All right, here we go. Look at the blast pattern right here. These people on the news are trained to lie. They know what's going on, and they've been trained. It's all disinformation. You talk about free press in America, it's hardly that. The freest press we have is right here on the internet. That's as good as it's going to get. Look at all the clockwise rotation here. It's high pressure. Got a huge right angle out over here, by the way. That is splitting this frontal system. See this peeling off? That's exactly what they want to do. Right here. This right angle right here. Transmitter manipulation all through this area. And that is separating this frontal system away from the center. Let's take a look real quick at, this is Jose. We can see a tremendous blast right on this area, a lot of evaporation. We see the blast pattern signature right along here during those first few frames, right there. And then the storm rebuilds. They'll just keep hitting this until it completely fizzles out. They can't do it all in one pop because it would be very obvious. So they do it a step at a time. They just keep hitting it with power. Probably every couple of hours they hit it. But see what's happening here. It's very obvious. If you look at this is the visible light floaters image loop. You can see the photoshopping here. And then we have all this turbulent activity out here on the periphery. All that evaporation. We can see a pressure wave shooting out right there. We see the photoshopping, the gauze photoshopping to hide all that detail where those transmitters are superheating the core of that hurricane. So just within the last day and a half, we went from a very strong Category 4 down to a Category 1. Let's look at the hurricane map right now. We have Jose, Category 1, 85 mile per hour winds, central pressure of 982 millibar, moving northeast. That's this direction, northeast. This thing was moving right along at about the same speed and direction as Irma. and it's been stopped. It's moving northeast now at 6 miles per hour. Then we have another disturbance out near Africa with a 10% chance. Okay, so we can see the manipulation going on here. There's probably a lot of wind in the Carolinas from this transmitter. They're forcing high pressure right into that low pressure area. And that's exactly what happened over San Francisco, San Jose, Los Gatos this morning and last night. There's an article in the San Francisco paper, sfgate.com, was linked to Drudge this morning about a freak windstorm in certain areas of the Bay Area. San Jose, Los Gatos, freak winds. Well, we'll take a look at why that happened here in a second. Basically, there was a very large mid and upper level low pressure right off of Central California that was poised to drop some serious rain, and that was stopped with a transmitter. We can take a look at that here in a couple of minutes, but I'm running out of time here. Let's take a look right now. We've got this mid and upper level low right here on the 300, or rather the 500 and 300 millibar maps. We have basically half of a low pressure system right here. The other half is being superheated, or rather heated, by a satellite transmitter. So we have half of a low right here. So the evaporation is apparent as it wraps around that low. Everything evaporates on the south side. We have a channel built in here, a barricade, to prevent the jet stream flow from moving towards that low pressure. Higher pressure flows to low pressure. So how can that be? Well, they've got why is this not flowing into that low pressure? Well, they've got high pressure built in right here. Okay, that's what's happening. And as we take a look at this again, we can see in the infrared map, we see the barricade built in there. We see the counterclockwise rotation. There is some rain up in the Bay Area, but what happened is that they hit this area with a transmitter right in this area. Now, this morning there was a tremendous blast pattern, a shock wave, pressure wave, which is still, let's stop the map here and I'll roll through it. Right here, that's where they hit this. And this morning, this was down over here, and we can see a pressure wave moving out. In fact, we can still see that. Let's run the loop. We can see, first of all the outflow. The outflow indicates descending air, high pressure, and we can see that pressure wave right there at the very end of it, right in this area. Watch, right there. It's a semicircle. It moves away, right there, and that's where they hit this storm, this developing weather system earlier today, and that caused a lot of wild weather in the Bay Area. Let's look at the San Francisco gate real quick here. That's not showing up. We'll have to come back to that. Meanwhile, we'll carry on here. It was linked to Drudge, and it was the title of it was "Meteorologists are puzzled, confused by what would cause this wild wind event." Because in Monterey, which is right on the coast, there was no wind. But Monterey is shielded by a coastal mountain range. And Monterey, by the way, was the first state capital in California. But if you look at the topo maps, Monterey is shielded. So, but these areas to the south are not. So that wild wind event generated by the transmitter downburst to neutralize and break up and superheat these thunderheads, it caused all that wind. That's what happened. All right, so I'm running just about out of time here. Now here we've got a couple of disturbances down here in the East Pacific. Let's look at those real quick. Okay, this map is not working. Here we go. We've got 15E, tropical depression 15E. We've got 10% chance here. We've got 50% chance right here. And we can see all that right here. This actually looks like everyday stuff, but for some reason it looks like they've got a plan to let some of this develop. So we'll keep an eye on that. And we'll just end it here real quick while we've got some time. Here's your half of low pressure. They could have done this to Hurricane Irma. Of course they didn't. That was a manufactured disaster. And now we've got billions of dollars worth of damage on our hands. Okay, that's it. We'll do another update as soon as we can. That's it.